The IT director fired me for delays. The access keys I controlled expired at midnight. The conference room smelled like burnt coffee and broken promises when Harlan told me I was done. 6 years of late nights, weekend patches, and silent heroics reduced to a single accusation: project delays. My hands were steady as I slid my badge across the table, but inside, I was cataloging every system I'd held together with digital duct tape and prayers. They had no idea what they'd just unplugged. Ever watch someone destroy their own engine because they didn't read the manual? That's corporate America in a nutshell. And if you're tired of watching incompetent managers torch the people who actually keep the lights on, hit that subscribe button. Because this story isn't just about revenge, it's about receipts. Let's go. Welcome to Revenge with Precious. Get ready for stories of betrayal, cunning, and ultimate payback. Stay with us, because the revenge you've been waiting for is about to unfold. The termination meeting lasted exactly 7 minutes. Harlan sat across from me in his pressed suit, fingers drumming on a folder he hadn't bothered opening. Behind him, the window framed the city skyline like a postcard from someone else's life. I'd been in this building since the servers ran on hope and caffeine, back when we were 20 employees crammed into converted warehouse space. "Trey, we've reviewed the launch timeline," Harlan said, his voice carrying that corporate flatness that meant lawyers had already signed off on this conversation. "The delays on the Meridian rollout traced directly back to access protocols under your control. The keys expired at midnight. The entire deployment window collapsed." I opened my mouth. Closed it. Tried again. I submitted 3 renewal requests. The first one was 48 hours before expiration. "You marked them all pending review." He waved a hand like swatting a fly. "That's not the issue here, Trey. The issue is accountability. When systems fail, someone has to answer for it. Someone. Not the director who'd ignored the warnings. Not the project manager who'd scheduled deployments without consulting the infrastructure team. Just me. The guy who showed up at 3 in the morning to restart crashed databases while everyone else slept." I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor, loud in the silence. "Fine. You want accountability? You'll get it." Harlan blinked. He hadn't expected calm. He'd expected begging, maybe tears, definitely not this quiet acceptance from someone he'd just branded a failure. I walked out before he could respond. The office fell silent as I passed through. Heads ducked behind monitors. Kayla from compliance gave me a sympathetic look but didn't speak. Nobody ever does when the axe falls. They're all too busy calculating whether they might be next. Outside, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message was 3 words: "Meet me." Bridge. My apartment was a 3rd-floor walk-up that smelled like old takeout and forgotten ambitions. I dropped my bag by the door and stood in the kitchen, staring at the coffee maker like it held answers. 6 years. 6 years of proving myself, of being the first one in and the last one out, of fixing problems nobody else saw coming. For what? I filled the pot with water, hands moving on autopilot. The truth was, I'd known this was coming. Not the firing specifically, but the inevitable collision between competence and politics. I'd watched it happen to others. The good ones always got blamed when the system failed, because the people running the system couldn't afford to admit they'd built it wrong. I'd helped everyone. Fixed Terry's email configuration at midnight when his kid was sick. Walked Patricia through server logs when she was panicking before her quarterly review. Even covered for Harlan himself when he'd accidentally locked himself out of the admin panel during a board presentation. None of it mattered now. The coffee brewed. I poured a cup and moved to the window. Outside, the city hummed with Friday evening traffic, people heading home to families, to lives that didn't revolve around network uptime percentages and disaster recovery protocols. Had I wasted 6 years being invisible? A knock startled me. I wasn't expecting anyone. I set down my coffee and opened the door. Nobody there. Just a package on the mat, unmarked brown cardboard with no label, no postage, just a logo I didn't recognize, a circuit pattern that looked almost organic. I brought it inside and stared at it for a full minute before opening it. Inside was a keycard. Sleek black polymer, no company logo, just that same circuit pattern etched in silver. And underneath, a note: "Your kindness wasn't wasted. Check your encrypted folder." V. I turned the keycard over in my hands. It was heavier than it looked, dense like it contained more than plastic and magnetic strip. The circuit pattern caught the light, and for a second, it almost seemed to pulse. Paranoia, probably. Or exhaustion. Or both. Who was V? I booted up my personal laptop, the old Lenovo I used for projects the company would never know about. My encrypted drive was where I kept backups, documentation, personal research, everything I didn't trust to corporate servers. I mounted the volume and checked the directory. New folder. Timestamp, 20 minutes ago. I hadn't added anything in weeks. My pulse kicked up. I opened it. Inside was a single file, invitation.pgp. Military-grade encryption. I didn't recognize the key signature, but when I tried to decrypt it, the software accepted it immediately, like it had been waiting for me. The file opened to reveal coordinates, a time 8 p.m. tonight, and an address on the industrial edge of town. Beneath that, a message: "You controlled the keys. Now control the truth. They used you. Come alone." My phone rang. The screen showed Harlan's name. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "What?" "Trey." His voice had changed. Softer. Almost apologetic. "Look, I think we should talk. In person. There are things I didn't say in the meeting, things that complicated the situation. Can you come back to the office? Tomorrow morning?" I closed my eyes. Calculated. "Why?" "Because I made a mistake." He sighed. "And because you deserve an explanation. Too little, too late. But interesting. Why the sudden change?" "I'll think about it," I said and hung up. The keycard sat on my desk, that circuit pattern seeming to watch me. 8 p.m. 3 hours from now. I could go home, ignore all of this, start applying for new jobs on Monday. Or I could find out what V wanted me to see. The address led to a tech park on the city's eastern edge, the kind of place where startups burned through venture capital and disappeared like mayflies. The building was dark except for one wing, where light leaked from high windows. I parked in an empty lot that smelled like rain and motor oil. The keycard worked on the entrance panel. The door clicked open. Inside, the air was cool and sterile. Server racks hummed in the distance. My footsteps echoed on polished concrete as I followed the corridor to a lab space lined with monitors and equipment that looked military-grade. Expensive. Secret. A woman stood with her back to me, studying code on a screen. 40s, dark hair pulled back, wearing a black jacket that had seen better days. She didn't turn around when I entered. "You came," she said. "Good. That means you still have instincts. Who are you?" She turned. I didn't recognize her face, but something in her eyes was familiar, the look of someone who'd spent too many years inside corporate machines watching gears crush people. Vivian Cross. Former VP of Infrastructure Operations. I left the company 4 years ago after I realized what Harlan was building. She gestured to a chair. "Sit. We don't have much time." I stayed standing. "What does that mean?" "It means Harlan's been running a systematic fraud scheme, using junior administrators like you as scapegoats." "The key expirations?" "He orchestrated them. Delayed your renewal requests deliberately. When systems failed, he blamed you, collected insurance payouts and emergency budget increases, then pocketed the difference through shell companies." I felt cold. "That's insane. It's documented." She tapped a keyboard. Files appeared on the screen: emails, financial transfers, logs showing Harlan's access to my renewal requests, timestamped proof he'd marked them pending and never processed them. You're the third admin he's burned this way. The others settled quietly. But you? You kept records. You helped people. That makes you dangerous to him. She handed me a thumb drive. Everything's on here. Enough to bury him. But if you use it, you need to understand, this goes deeper than one corrupt director. I drove home with the thumb drive burning a hole in my pocket. My mind replayed 6 years in fast forward: every late night, every crisis averted, every time I'd stayed quiet when I should have spoken up. I'd thought I was building a career. Turns out I'd been building someone else's escape plan. I remembered the time I'd fixed the payroll system at 2 in the morning when it crashed during processing. Nobody thanked me. They just expected the checks to clear. I remembered training the new hires Harlan brought in, teaching them protocols he should have documented, covering gaps he'd left in the infrastructure. I'd done it because I believed in the work. Because I thought competence mattered. Because I was naive enough to think fairness existed in systems built by people who profit from chaos. Stupid. Back at my apartment, I plugged in the thumb drive. The files were organized like a legal case: evidence folders, timeline documents, financial trails. Vivian had been collecting this for years. Waiting for the right moment. The right person. Why me? My phone buzzed. Text from Kayla: "Hey. Are you okay? Harlan's acting weird. Asked me about your access logs from last month. Wanted to know who you talked to." I stared at the message. If Harlan was digging now, that meant he was scared. Which meant Vivian was right. This wasn't just about one failed project. This was about covering tracks. I typed back, "I'm fine. Don't tell him anything." And Kayla? Start backing up your files. Just in case. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Then, "You're scaring me." Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Trust me on this. I sent it and powered down my phone. If Harlan was watching, I wasn't giving him anything to track. Tomorrow morning, he wanted to talk. Fine. Let's talk. I showed up at the office at 7 a.m., an hour before our scheduled meeting. The building was quiet, just security guards and the overnight cleaning crew finishing up. I used my personal access code, they hadn't revoked it yet, and went straight to my old desk. Everything was still there. My monitors, my notes, the ugly coffee mug Terry had given me as a joke. Like I'd just stepped out for lunch. Like I hadn't been erased. I booted up my workstation and accessed the system logs, not through the company portal, but through a backdoor I'd built years ago for emergency maintenance. Technically against policy. Practically essential when the infrastructure was held together with bubblegum and optimism. Harlan's access history populated on my screen. There it was, 3 separate instances where he'd opened my key renewal requests, flagged them as pending, and then, nothing. No approval, no denial, just administrative purgatory until the keys expired and systems failed right on schedule. Premeditated. Trey? I jumped. Harlan stood in the doorway, coffee in hand, looking uncertain. Without his usual authority, he seemed smaller. Older. "You're early," he said. "You said we should talk." I closed the window on my screen. "So talk." He sat down across from me, set his coffee aside. "I owe you an apology. The way I handled Friday was harsh. You've been a valuable employee, and I let the pressure from upstairs cloud my judgment." Pressure from upstairs. Classic deflection. "You ignored my renewal requests," I said flatly. 3 of them. Why? He blinked. I didn't ignore them. They got caught in approvals. You know how bureaucracy works. Show me the approval chain. What? If they got caught in bureaucracy, there's a trail. Show me. His jaw tightened. "Trey, I'm trying to make this right. I'm offering you your position back. Full reinstatement. We can put this behind us. I stood up. No. Excuse me? I said no. I don't want to work for someone who used me as a scapegoat. Keep the job. I walked out while his mouth was still open. That night, I went deeper into the thumb drive files. Vivian had included server logs from the past 3 years, financial records that showed budget surges after every major crisis, and email chains between Harlan and external contractors who got paid massive sums for emergency repairs that never happened. The pattern was clear: create chaos, blame the lowest person on the ladder, collect emergency funds, redirect them through shell companies. Rinse and repeat. But the files went further. There were references to other departments, other schemes. Harlan wasn't working alone. He had partners in finance, in operations, maybe even on the board. This wasn't just corruption. This was institutional rot. I found a hidden folder labeled Project Cascade. Inside were architectural diagrams of the company's entire network infrastructure, annotated with what looked like deliberate vulnerabilities. Backdoors built into security protocols. Access points that shouldn't exist. Someone had weaponized our own systems. And then I saw it. The timestamp on the key expiration wasn't random. It was calculated to coincide with the Meridian launch, the biggest client deployment in company history. If that launch had failed completely, the company would have faced lawsuits, penalties, maybe bankruptcy. Harlan had bet on failure. And when my keys expired, he'd planned for total system collapse. Except something had stopped it. I checked the deployment logs. At 12:47 a.m., someone had manually overridden the security lockout and pushed the deployment through using emergency administrator credentials. Credentials that belonged to Vivian Cross, who supposedly left the company 4 years ago. She'd been inside the system all along. My phone buzzed. Text from unknown number: "You're close. Keep digging. They're watching now." V. I looked at my dark window. Was someone out there? Another text: "Don't trust Harlan's offer. It's bait. Check your company email. Now." I logged into my company email through a VPN, masked my location. My inbox was flooded with messages from the last 48 hours. HR documents. Legal notices. And one from Harlan marked urgent with high priority. Subject: non-disclosure agreement, immediate action required. I opened it. Standard legal boilerplate about protecting company interests, maintaining confidentiality, not disparaging the organization. But buried in paragraph 7 was a clause that made my blood run cold: employee agrees not to discuss, disclose, or retain any documentation related to infrastructure security protocols, key management systems, or administrative access procedures developed during employment. They wanted me to sign away my right to talk about what I knew. And if I refused, the severance package disappeared and they'd pursue me for breach of contract. I called Kayla. She answered on the first ring. "Trey? Where are you?" "Doesn't matter." "Did you get any weird warnings? Texts? Calls?" Silence. Then, quietly, someone called my personal cell this morning. Didn't leave a name. Just said I should distance myself from you. That you were involved in something dangerous. My stomach dropped. "Kayla, listen to me. Don't sign anything Harlan gives you. Don't talk to anyone from legal without your own lawyer present. And for God's sake, don't tell anyone we spoke. You're freaking me out." "Good. That means you're paying attention." I heard voices in the background on her end. "Who's there?" "I'm at the office." "Trey, they're asking about you. Security wants to review your access logs. They're treating this like you did something wrong." "I did. I noticed." I hung up before she could respond. My apartment suddenly felt too small, too exposed. If they were going after Kayla just for being associated with me, they were playing for keeps. I grabbed my laptop, the thumb drive, and a go bag I'd kept packed since my first IT job, old habit from working disaster recovery. Never know when you'll need to rebuild from scratch. I was halfway to the door when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy. Deliberate. 3 sharp knocks. I looked through the peephole. A man in a dark suit stood outside, government quality earpiece visible, hands clasped in front of him like he was waiting for a bus. Not police. Not corporate security. Something else. I didn't open the door. Trey Lansing? His voice was calm, professional. I'm with Bridgewater Security. We've been contracted to ensure your safety during the current corporate investigation. I didn't hire security. Vivian Cross did. On your behalf. She thought you might need protection given recent developments. Prove it. He slid something under the door. A business card, embossed with the same circuit pattern as the keycard. On the back, handwritten, "Trust him. They're escalating. V." I opened the door a crack, chain still engaged. Up close, the man looked tired. Early 50s, graying at the temples, eyes that had seen too much. "We should go," he said. "Your landlord received a request to access your unit for maintenance. They'll be here in 10 minutes. Maintenance doesn't work weekends." Exactly. He glanced down the hallway. "Miss Cross has a secure location prepared. I'll take you there. You can bring your equipment." Every instinct screamed trap. But if he wanted to hurt me, he wouldn't have warned me first. I grabbed my bag. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere Harlan can't buy his way into." We took the back stairs. Outside, a black sedan waited with tinted windows. I'd seen enough movies to know this was either rescue or kidnapping. The man opened the rear door. "Your choice, Mr. Lansing. But make it fast." I got in. The car smelled like leather and gun oil. We drove in silence through streets I didn't recognize, heading away from the city center toward the industrial zone where I'd met Vivian. The driver never spoke, just checked his mirrors every 30 seconds with professional paranoia. We pulled into an underground garage beneath what looked like an abandoned factory. The security guard at the entrance nodded us through without checking credentials. Inside, the garage was surprisingly clean, lined with vehicles that ranged from nondescript sedans to a van with enough antennae to contact satellites. Vivian waited by an elevator, arms crossed. She looked grimmer than before. "They moved faster than I expected," she said as I climbed out. "Harlan activated a response protocol. He's claiming you stole proprietary code and leaked it to competitors. He's got lawyers drafting criminal charges." "That's insane." "That's effective. By Monday morning, every tech company in the city will know you're radioactive. You'll be unhireable." She pushed the elevator button. "Unless we move first." We rode up in silence. The elevator opened onto a floor that looked like a hacker's paradise: workstations, monitors displaying code and surveillance feeds, equipment I didn't have names for. 3 people worked at various stations, barely glancing up as we entered. Vivian led me to a conference room with windows overlooking the city. She closed the door, pulled down shades. "The thumb drive I gave you was the appetizer," she said. "This is the main course." She opened a laptop and pulled up files that made the previous evidence look tame. Offshore accounts, wire transfers, communications between Harlan and executives at competing firms. But the worst part was the timeline. Project Cascade wasn't just about embezzlement, Vivian said. Harlan's been selling corporate secrets to competitors for 3 years. The infrastructure vulnerabilities, the client data, deployment schedules, everything. And every time someone got close to figuring it out, he blamed a junior admin and buried the investigation. "Why me? Why now?" "Because you kept records. You documented everything. And someone upstairs noticed. They were about to audit the infrastructure team. Harlan needed a scapegoat before they found his fingerprints." She pulled up a photo. A woman in her 30s, professional headshot. Recognize her? I shook my head. Bryn Aldridge. FBI. White Collar Division. She's been investigating the company for 6 months. Harlan doesn't know yet. But when he finds out, he'll burn everything. Including you. So what do I do? Vivian smiled. It wasn't pleasant. You help me destroy him first. Vivian's plan was surgical. We had 72 hours before Harlan's legal team filed charges. In that window, we needed to deliver everything to Agent Aldridge, the evidence, the timeline, my testimony, in a package so airtight that Harlan couldn't weasel out. But first, we needed the final piece. Harlan keeps a personal server, Vivian explained, pulling up network diagrams. It's not on company infrastructure. Home setup, encrypted, air-gapped from everything else. That's where he stores the real records. The ones that show exactly how much he's stolen and who he sold to. How do you know about it? Because I helped him set it up. Before I figured out what he was using it for. I studied the diagram. You want me to hack my former boss's home server? I want you to retrieve what's yours. Those access logs, the proof he deliberately sabotaged your career? It's all there. Along with evidence that'll send him to prison for 20 years. That's illegal. So is framing you for corporate espionage. She leaned forward. Trey, I know you spent 6 years playing by the rules. Being the good employee, the helpful colleague, the invisible hero. Where did that get you? The words hit harder than I wanted to admit. I'm not asking you to become a criminal, she continued. I'm asking you to take back what he stole. Your reputation. Your career. Your life. I looked at the network diagram. Harlan's house was in the suburbs, gated community, probably decent security. But I'd spent years learning his patterns, his habits, his arrogance. He'd think he was untouchable. That was his mistake. When do we go? Harlan lived in one of those neighborhoods where the lawns looked spray-painted and the HOA fined you for unauthorized mailbox colors. His house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, 2-story colonial with a 3-car garage and security cameras visible at every corner. We parked 3 streets over. Vivian handed me a small device that looked like a phone but felt heavier. Signal jammer, she said. 30-foot radius. It'll kill his cameras and motion sensors for exactly 4 minutes before his system alerts him to the outage. That's your window. 4 minutes to break in, find the server, and extract the data? I didn't say it would be easy. The security guard from earlier, his name was Patterson, sat in the driver's seat, scanning his tablet. Harlan's car left 20 minutes ago. Heading downtown. Probably meeting his lawyers. Wife's at a charity thing across town. House is empty. This was happening. Actually happening. I took the jammer, checked my watch. 9:47 p.m. In 13 minutes, I was committing a felony. Have you ever stood at the edge of a decision that splits your life into before and after? That's where I was. I could walk away, take my chances with the legal system, hope truth mattered more than money. Or I could become someone new. Someone who fought back. I activated the jammer. Patterson handed me a tension wrench and a pick set. Back door. The lock's a schlag. Should take you 90 seconds if you're good. I wasn't good. But adrenaline made me fast. The lock gave way in 2 minutes. I slipped inside Harlan's kitchen, dark except for appliance lights. The air smelled like coffee and expensive detergent. Everything was too clean, too perfect, like a showroom nobody actually lived in. Vivian's voice crackled in my earpiece. Servers in the basement. Northeast corner. You have 2 minutes, 30 seconds. I found the basement stairs. The server sat in a climate-controlled room that Harlan had clearly spent serious money on. Rack-mounted equipment hummed softly, indicator lights blinking in the darkness like watching eyes. I recognized some of the hardware enterprise-grade stuff that belonged in data centers, not suburban basements. I plugged Vivian's device into the network port. The screen lit up, code scrolling as her remote access script ran. Somewhere across town, she was infiltrating Harlan's personal fortress while I stood guard in his basement like the world's most anxious lookout. "I'm in," she said through the earpiece. File transfer initiated. 60 seconds. I watched the progress bar crawl across the screen. 40%. 50. Upstairs, something thumped. I froze. Vivian? Almost there. 70%. Another sound. Footsteps. Someone was in the house. "Someone's here," I whispered. "Impossible. Patterson has eyes on both." The basement door opened. Light flooded the stairwell. "Trey?" Harlan's voice. Shocked. Angry. "What the hell are you doing in my house?" 90%. I yanked the device free, shoved it in my pocket. Harlan thundered down the stairs, still in his suit from the lawyer meeting, face purple with rage. "Breaking and entering? You're done. I'm calling the police right now." He pulled out his phone. I saw my life ending, arrested, charged, unemployable, everything Vivian warned about coming true. Then his phone died. Screen black. The jammer was still active. Harlan stared at his phone, then at me. Understanding dawned. "You're stealing my data." "I'm collecting evidence." "There's a difference." He laughed. Actually laughed. "Evidence of what?" "That you broke into my home? That you're exactly the liability I told everyone you were? Evidence that you sabotaged me. That you've been running fraud schemes through the company for years. That you built backdoors into our infrastructure and sold access to competitors." His face changed. The anger drained into something colder. "Calculating. You can't prove any of that." Actually, Vivian's voice came through my earpiece, loud enough that Harlan could hear it. "He can. Download complete. Every file, every transaction, every email. Thanks for keeping such detailed records." Harlan went pale. I backed toward the stairs. Harlan didn't move, just stood there processing his own destruction. "You don't understand what you've done," he said quietly. "The people I work with, they don't forgive this kind of thing. You've made yourself a target. Better a target than a victim." I ran. Up the stairs, through his kitchen, out the back door. Patterson's sedan was already moving, rolling up as I burst into the night. I dove into the back seat. "Go!" We were 3 blocks away before my hands stopped shaking. Vivian's voice came through the car's speakers, calm as ever. "Clean extraction. Data's secure. Harlan's probably calling his lawyers right now, but it won't matter. We have everything." "What about the break-in?" "He saw me." "He reports it, he has to explain what you were after. That opens doors he wants to keep closed. He'll stay quiet. For now." Patterson glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "You did good, kid. First time? And last time." He grinned. "That's what they all say." Back at Vivian's headquarters, I collapsed into a chair while she uploaded the files to encrypted servers. The data was massive years of corruption, documented in Harlan's own obsessive detail. He'd kept everything, probably as insurance against his partners. Now it was evidence against him. "FBI gets this tomorrow," Vivian said. "Along with your statement, the employment records, and the timeline showing how he set you up. By Monday afternoon, agents will be walking into his office with warrants." "And me? What happens to me?" "You?" She smiled. "You become a witness. Protected. Relocated if necessary. And when the dust settles, you get to decide what kind of life you want." I thought about that. 6 years of being invisible, of helping others, of believing the system would eventually reward good work. Maybe it was time to build a different system. My phone buzzed. Text from Kayla, they're asking about you again. I didn't say anything. But Trey, people are scared. What's happening? I typed back, justice. Tell them to start backing up their files. There's going to be an earthquake. Sunday morning, I met Agent Aldridge in a coffee shop so aggressively normal it had to be a deliberate choice. She was younger than I expected, sharp-eyed, with the kind of intensity that came from hunting white-collar criminals who thought they were untouchable. Mr. Lansing. She shook my hand. I've been looking forward to this conversation for months. You knew about me? I knew Harlan had a pattern of burning junior administrators. You're the first one who fought back. She opened a tablet, pulled up files. Ms. Cross sent me preliminary documentation. It's compelling. But I need your testimony on record. Everything you witnessed, everything you documented. I spent 3 hours walking her through 6 years of infrastructure management, key renewal processes, the timeline of Harlan's sabotage. She recorded everything, asked sharp questions, never let me generalize or assume. When we finished, she sat back. This is solid. Combined with the financial records and communications Ms. Cross provided, we have enough for multiple indictments. Fraud, computer crimes, maybe even RICO if we can prove organized conspiracy. How long until you move? 48 hours. We'll execute search warrants simultaneously, his home, his office, the company servers. He won't have time to destroy evidence. What about the people he's working with? His partners? She smiled. We've been mapping his network for months. When Harlan goes down, we'll take the whole operation. You helped us see the full picture. I left the coffee shop feeling lighter than I had in weeks. For the first time since that conference room firing, I could breathe. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Trey Lansing? A man's voice, older, unfamiliar. Who's asking? Someone who appreciates what you've done. I've been watching Harlan's operations for a long time. You've accelerated our timeline considerably. Who is this? A friend. I'd like to meet. Tomorrow. There's an opportunity one think you'd find interesting. I'm not interested in opportunities right now. Not even one that involves rebuilding what Harlan corrupted? Using your skills to create something better? I hesitated. What are you talking about? Meet me tomorrow. 8 p.m. The bridge where this all started. Come alone. He hung up. The bridge was industrial, metal and concrete spanning a river that smelled like old industry. I arrived early, parked where I could watch the approaches. At exactly 8 p.m., a black town car pulled up. A man stepped out. 60s, expensive suit, moving with the careful precision of someone who'd survived corporate wars. I recognized him from company photographs. Donovan Pierce. Former CEO, 3 administrations ago, before Harlan's time. Mr. Lansing. He approached with hand extended. Thank you for meeting me. You were watching Harlan? I was watching the company I built get hollowed out from the inside. Harlan's corruption didn't start with him. But he perfected it. Pierce leaned against the bridge railing, looking at the dark water below. I left because I couldn't stop it from the inside. The board was compromised. So I've been working from the outside, gathering evidence, waiting for the right catalyst. And I'm the catalyst? You're the proof that good people still exist in that building. People who care about the work, not just the paycheck. He turned to face me. I'm putting together a new venture. Security Infrastructure Consulting. White hat operation, helping companies identify vulnerabilities before they become disasters. I want people who understand systems. Who've seen corruption up close. Who won't compromise. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a partnership. 20% equity. Full control of technical operations. Salary that reflects your actual value, not what Harlan thought you were worth. I stared at him. Why me? Because you kept records when everyone else looked away. Because you helped people even when it cost you. Because when they tried to make you a scapegoat, you became a whistleblower instead. He pulled out a business card. Think about it. But not too long. I want to launch in 60 days. He got back in his car and left me standing on the bridge with a business card that felt like a winning lottery ticket. My phone buzzed. Text from Vivian, FBI moves tomorrow. Harlan's finished. What's next for you? I looked at the card. Then at the city lights reflecting in the water. What's next? Maybe something better. Monday morning exploded. I watched the news from Vivian's headquarters, surrounded by monitors showing different feeds. FBI agents walked into the company building at 6:47 a.m., before most employees arrived. By 7, they were carrying out boxes of evidence while Harlan stood in the lobby, handcuffed, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. The news ran it as major corporate fraud investigation. By noon, the company's stock had dropped 40%. By evening, 3 board members had resigned. Kayla texted, "Holy God. They arrested Harlan. Security's walking people out." What did you do? I called her. I told the truth. That's all. They're saying he stole millions. That he sabotaged systems and blamed employees. Trey, were you one of them? Yeah. Silence. Then, I'm sorry. I should have seen it. We all should have. It's not your fault. Systems like this work because good people don't want to believe the corruption goes that deep. What happens now? To the company? I don't know. But whatever comes next, it'll be better than what Harlan built. That night, Agent Aldridge called. We got him. Multiple charges, evidence from 6 different schemes. He's looking at 15 to 20 years. And Mr. Lansing? Thank you. Cases like this don't break without people like you. People like me? People who give a damn. I sat in my apartment, looking at Donovan Pierce's business card. 20% equity. Partnership. A chance to build something clean. My phone rang. Vivian. You did it, she said. You brought down a corrupt director, exposed a criminal network, and survived. How does it feel? Exhausting. She laughed. That's honest. Listen, I'm shutting down this operation. FBI doesn't need me anymore. But before I go, I wanted to say, you reminded me why I got into this business. To help people. To fight for the ones who can't fight for themselves. What will you do now? Something quieter. Maybe consulting. Maybe teaching. Maybe just sleeping for a month. She paused. What about you? I looked at the card again. I think I'm going to build something. Something that matters. Good. The world needs more builders. Fewer destroyers. After she hung up, I sat in the quiet, feeling the weight of 6 years lifting. Harlan was finished. The company would rebuild or collapse, but either way, the rot was exposed. And me? I was free. 2 weeks later, I signed the partnership agreement with Donovan Pierce. The office was small, 10th floor of a building downtown, with windows overlooking the river. 3 employees to start, me, a junior analyst named Felix who reminded me of myself at 25, and a former federal investigator named Roxanne who'd spent 20 years hunting corporate criminals. Pierce gave me complete control of technical operations. No oversight, no micromanagement, just trust and resources. It felt surreal. We start with integrity audits, Pierce explained in our first strategy meeting. Companies hire us to find their vulnerabilities before bad actors do. We document everything, recommend fixes, help implement solutions. No cutting corners. No compromising on security. And if we find corruption, we report it. Through proper channels. Legal, ethical, documented. He looked at me. We're building the company I wish had existed when Harlan started destroying mine. I spent the first month designing audit protocols, building scanning tools, creating documentation that actually explained how systems worked. Everything Harlan's operation had lacked: clarity, honesty, accountability. Felix turned out to be brilliant. Hungry to learn, asking questions that showed he understood not just code but consequences. Roxanne brought the investigative framework, teaching us how to spot red flags, follow money trails, document evidence that would hold up in court. We landed our first client in week 6. Mid-sized logistics company, concerned about data security after a competitor got hacked. I spent 3 weeks in their infrastructure, finding holes, documenting risks, recommending solutions that didn't require throwing money at enterprise software they didn't need. When I presented the findings, their CTO almost cried with relief. "Nobody's ever explained this stuff in plain language before," he said. "They just sell us products and hope we figure it out." That became our model: treat clients like intelligent people who deserved honest answers. Word spread. 6 months in, we had 12 clients and a waiting list. Pierce hired 4 more analysts. We moved to bigger offices. The work was demanding but clean: no politics, no sabotage, just solving problems and documenting solutions. I got an email from Kayla. She'd left the old company when it went through bankruptcy restructuring. New management came in, cleaned house, rebuilt from the ground up. "They're hiring," she wrote. "Completely different culture. People actually help each other now. It's weird." I smiled. Sometimes systems do get better. Just takes burning down the rot first. Agent Aldridge sent me a case update. Harlan had pleaded guilty to avoid trial, negotiated down to 12 years. 3 of his partners got similar sentences. The FBI recovered $42 million in stolen funds, most of which went back to the company and its defrauded clients. "Your testimony was crucial," Aldridge wrote. "Couldn't have built the case without your documentation. Ever thought about consulting for federal investigations?" I forwarded the email to Pierce. He laughed. "You're building a reputation," he said. "The guy who brought down Harlan. That's currency in this industry." I just told the truth. Exactly. In a world of liars, honesty is revolutionary. That night, I sat in my new apartment, bigger place, better neighborhood, actual furniture instead of milk crates, and optimism, and thought about the journey. From invisible systems administrator to partner in a growing firm. From scapegoat to whistleblower to builder. Vivian had asked what I wanted to build. I finally had an answer: something that treated people like they mattered. Where competence was rewarded, kindness wasn't weakness, and truth actually meant something. My phone buzzed. Text from Felix: "Client in Portland found something weird in their logs. Looks like somebody's been running unauthorized processes. Want me to handle it, or you want in?" I grabbed my laptop. "Send me the access credentials. Let's see what we're dealing with." The work never stopped. But now it meant something. A year after Harlan's arrest, I got invited to speak at a security conference. The organizers wanted me to talk about whistleblowing, about standing up to corruption, about the personal cost of doing the right thing. I almost said no. Public speaking terrified me. But Pierce convinced me. "People need to hear your story," he said. "Not the dramatic parts. The quiet parts. How you kept records when nobody was watching. How you helped colleagues without expecting credit. That's the story that matters." The conference was in Denver, 300 security professionals in a hotel ballroom that smelled like coffee and ambition. I stood at the podium, looking at faces that ranged from skeptical to curious to exhausted. I told them about the key renewals. About 6 years of invisible work. About the moment in that conference room when I realized competence wouldn't save me from politics. I thought if I just worked hard enough, if I was helpful enough, the system would protect me, I said. I was wrong. Systems don't protect people. People protect people. And sometimes that means breaking the comfortable lies we tell ourselves about fairness and merit. The room was silent. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who got tired of being used. Who decided documentation was a weapon and truth was armor. Who learned that kindness isn't weakness, it's infrastructure. The relationships you build, the people you help, they're the foundation that holds up when everything else collapses. Afterward, a dozen people came up to share their own stories. Scapegoating, sabotage, corruption hidden behind corporate jargon. They'd stayed quiet because they thought they were alone. You're not alone, I told each one. Document everything. Build your network. And when the moment comes, don't hesitate. The system won't save you. But you can save yourself. A woman in her 40s approached last, eyes red like she'd been crying. I'm going through it right now, she whispered. My director's blaming me for failures I didn't cause. I have proof, but I'm scared. I gave her my card. Call me. We'll talk. You don't have to do this alone. She hugged me. Unexpected. Genuine. That's when I understood, this was bigger than revenge. This was about changing the pattern. 2 years in, our firm had 23 employees and offices in 4 cities. We become the go-to consultancy for companies that wanted honest security assessments, not salesmanship disguised as expertise. Pierce stepped back from day-to-day operations, let me run the technical side while he handled business development. The trust was complete. You've built something remarkable, he said during a quarterly review. Company culture that actually matches the mission statement. Imagine that. We'd implemented policies I wished my old company had: transparent compensation, documented processes, mandatory vacation, zero tolerance for blame games. When mistakes happened, and they did, we treated them as learning opportunities, not ammunition. Felix had grown into a senior analyst, leading his own audit teams. Roxanne expanded our investigative services, helping clients uncover internal fraud before it metastasized. We'd even hired 2 of the other administrators Harlan had burned, giving them fresh starts and platforms to rebuild their careers. Kayla joined us in month 18, bringing deep knowledge of compliance systems and a network of contacts who'd survived corporate purges. She'd become one of our best consultants, helping clients build ethical frameworks that prevented the kind of rot Harlan had cultivated. You know what's funny, she said during a team meeting. We're all Harlan's victims. He tried to destroy us. Instead, he created his own competition. Someone suggested sending him a thank you card in prison. We voted against it, but barely. The old company had stabilized under new leadership. They'd become a client, ironically, hiring us to audit the infrastructure I'd once maintained. Walking through those halls felt surreal, same building, different energy. People smiled. Helped each other. Nobody looked over their shoulder waiting for blame to fall. You set this in motion, their new CTO told me. Exposing Harlan forced us to rebuild everything. Culture, systems, leadership. We're better because you refused to stay quiet. I just told the truth. Right. Revolutionary. I started mentoring junior administrators through a program we developed with local universities. Kids fresh out of school, eager to prove themselves, vulnerable to exploitation. I taught them what I'd learned the hard way: document everything, understand your value, recognize red flags, build networks. The system isn't fair, I told them. But you can build fairness into the systems you create. That's the job. Not just making things work, but making them work right. One student, a quiet woman named Iris who reminded me of myself, asked, what if the people in charge don't want fairness? Then you document their resistance. And when the opportunity comes, you show someone who cares. Federal investigators, journalists, boards of directors. Truth is a weapon. Use it. 3 of my men got hired by our firm. 2 more started their own consultancies, using our model. The pattern was spreading. Agent Aldridge invited me to speak to FBI recruits about corporate investigations. I spent a day at Quantico, explaining how administrators see things executives miss, how documentation builds cases, how corporate cultures hide crimes in plain sight. You people are the early warning system, I told them. When administrators start getting fired for mysterious reasons, that's your signal. Someone's covering tracks. Afterward, Aldridge pulled me aside. We've gotten 4 tips from your conference speech. People who recognize their own situations in your story. 2 are developing into major cases. Good. You've become a problem for corrupt executives. They know your name now. Know what you represent. Let them know. Maybe it'll make them think twice. She smiled. Or maybe it'll make them more careful. Either way, you've changed the landscape. That night, I sat in my office, looking at the city lights. 5 years since Harlan fired me. 5 years since I thought my career was over. Instead, I'd helped build something that mattered. Helped people who'd been where I was. Created ripples that might maybe make the system a little less broken. Not revolutionary. Just persistent. My phone buzzed. Text from Vivian, first contact in months, saw your TED Talk. Proud of you. Keep fighting. I typed back, always. Thanks for showing me how. The message came on a Tuesday. Email from a whistleblower at a Fortune 500 company, encrypted, desperate. They'd found evidence of systematic fraud, tried to report it internally, got threatened with termination. Now they were scared and didn't know what to do. I scheduled a call. The whistleblower Andrea sounded exhausted. I've documented everything. 3 years of manipulated reports, inflated earnings, hidden losses. But I'm just a senior accountant. Who's going to listen to me? Lots of people. But first, we need to protect you. I walked her through the process: secure the evidence, contact FBI, prepare testimony, understand the protections available under whistleblower statutes. The same path I'd walked. It's going to get ugly, I warned. They'll attack your credibility, your motives, your competence. They'll make you wish you'd stayed quiet. But you didn't stay quiet. No. And I don't regret it. But I won't lie to you, it cost me. Relationships, sleep, peace of mind. You need to understand what you're walking into. Silence. Then, if I don't do this, more people get hurt. The fraud affects pension funds, retirement accounts, people who can't afford the losses. I can't live with staying quiet. I connected Andrea with Agent Aldridge, with lawyers who specialized in whistleblower protection, with counselors who understood the psychological toll. I'd built this network over 5 years, learning who could be trusted, who actually helped versus who just talked. Andrea's case broke 6 months later. Major investigation, executive arrests, congressional hearings. She testified with the same quiet courage I'd seen in the mirror years ago. Afterward, she joined our firm. I need to work somewhere that values truth, she said. Somewhere that won't punish me for caring. That made 4 whistleblowers on our team. We'd become a haven for people who'd been burned by corporate corruption, who understood that systems needed constant maintenance, constant vigilance, constant truth-telling. Pierce announced his retirement at year 5. Handed me controlling interest in the company. This was always your vision, he said. I just provided the framework. What you build next is up to you. I promoted Felix to senior partner. Brought Kayla into leadership. Expanded our mission to include advocacy, working with legislators to strengthen whistleblower protections and corporate accountability. The work kept growing. 7 years after Harlan's arrest, I got a letter. Prison mail, neat handwriting, return address from the federal facility where he was serving his sentence. I almost threw it away. But curiosity won. Trey, it began. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know, you were right. About everything. I convinced myself that the corruption was necessary, that everyone did it, that I was just playing the game. I was wrong. He went on for 3 pages, detailing his regrets, his therapy sessions, his slow understanding of the damage he'd caused. Real damage, to real people, not just abstract corporate losses. You kept records because you cared about the work, he wrote. I stopped caring somewhere along the way. Stopped seeing people as people. That's when the corruption started. When I forgot that systems are built by humans, for humans. The letter ended with a question: do you think people can change? Do you think redemption is possible? I sat with that for days. Thought about the junior administrators he destroyed, the lives disrupted, the careers ended. Thought about the millions stolen, the trust broken, the system corrupted. But I also thought about Andrea, Felix, Kayla, people who'd survived corruption and chosen to build something better. People who'd been given second chances and used them to create fairness. I wrote back. Short letter. Change is possible if you're willing to do the work. Real work, not just words. When you get out, if you want to rebuild, we can talk. But only if you're serious about helping instead of taking. I didn't know if he'd respond. Didn't know if he was genuine or manipulating. But I'd learned that rigid certainty was its own kind of corruption. Sometimes you had to believe people could be better. Even people who'd hurt you. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Trey Lansing? This is Washington Post. We're doing a feature on corporate whistleblowers. Would you be willing to talk? And so it continued. 10 years later, I stood in front of a Senate committee, testifying about corporate accountability legislation. The room smelled like old wood and political theater, senators arranged in a semicircle like judges, cameras capturing everything. Systems don't protect people, I told them. People protect people. But we can build systems that make protection easier. That reward honesty instead of punishing it. That treat documentation as evidence, not disloyalty. I talked about the key renewals, about Harlan's sabotage, about the pattern I'd seen repeated in dozens of companies since. Junior employees blamed for senior corruption. Truth tellers silenced. Evidence destroyed. Make whistleblowing safer, I urged. Stronger legal protections, better financial support, guaranteed employment rights. Make the cost of retaliation higher than the cost of honesty. That's how you change the system. The legislation passed 8 months later. Not perfect, but better. Stronger protections, clearer reporting channels, penalties for retaliation. Our firm had grown to 200 employees across 12 cities. We'd consulted for Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, nonprofits. Every engagement started with the same principle: truth first. Felix ran the Eastern Division now. Kayla led our advocacy work. Andrea had become our chief investigator, using her accounting expertise to uncover fraud others missed. Roxanne trained new investigators, teaching them to see patterns in chaos. And me? I split time between consulting, mentoring, and speaking. Telling the story of the keys that expired at midnight, the director who thought he was untouchable, the systems administrator who wouldn't stay quiet. Not because I was special. Because I was tired of being invisible. I got a message from Vivian. She'd started teaching at a university, training the next generation of ethical technologists. Your model works, she wrote. My students are building fairness into their code. It's spreading. That night, I sat in my office, looking at a framed photo. Me, Pierce, Kayla, Felix, Andrea, Roxanne. Team photo from year 5, everyone smiling, everyone knowing they'd survived something and built something better. The access keys had expired at midnight. But I'd rebuilt the system. Not just for me. For everyone who came after. Never let the system define your worth. Never stay quiet when you know the truth. Never stop building fairness into a world that tries to optimize it away. Document everything. Help everyone. Fight always. That's the job. That's always been the job. And somewhere out there, another administrator is keeping records, helping colleagues, staying late to fix what's broken. Wondering if anyone notices. Wondering if it matters. It matters. Trust me. I know. And that's where the story ends, for now. Always remember, betrayal isn't forgotten, and payback is inevitable. Stay tuned for more on Revenge with Precious.